Hola, mi gente. This is Phillip Johnson, producer with Uno Souls, and I'm here with host Brigitta.
Hello, Philip. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well, thank you. And
Great.
welcome to Uno Souls Chats. We are a weekly podcast that honors beacons of light in our communities, spotlighting true acts of kindness.
Yeah, we really hope to shed light on how we are not alone on our journey and explore ways to help with coping and finding joy along the way.
Yeah, and this week, part of that um, is focusing on, not being alone on the journey. It's very topical, actually, which I don't
Yeah.
think either of us realized. Um, but, you know, we've spent the first couple of chats this month talking about refresh and beginning the new year 2021, and looking back on last year and pulling out silver linings. And I know that you have been talking about what it means to be alone versus loneliness, and how that was especially relevant during quarantine, and still is going on right now. So
Yeah, definitely.
I'm interested to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I've been thinking a lot about this topic of loneliness versus being alone, and it's not something that I thought about a lot in my youth. Um, I really didn't understand that concept. Um, and then I got married when I was very young. I was 17.
Mm,
So I went kind of from being a child at home to being in a marriage and then having kids. And I was married for 32 years. And
wow.
so I always had somebody at home. Somebody was always there. Um, I think that what happened in some points of my marriage is that I did start to understand the concept of being lonely. So, of being in a marriage, having another person in my life, in my home, in my space, yet still feeling lonely because the connection had changed with us, and it wasn't the same. So I started to understand this concept of loneliness. And then I got divorced 8 years ago. And then by then my kids were out of the home, already married. And then suddenly I was by myself. And that's when it really hit me like a ton of bricks, the whole loneliness concept. It was a really hard reality.
Mm, wow. Wow. I mean, I can't imagine having not being alone during that whole period, in terms of, like, what you said, someone being at home. I think that it's the other experience is that, when you are in your, 20s, maybe early 30s, you are, sort of seeking out or looking for a partner or your other half, or what have you. And there are moments where, you are alone during that period. And I think people go through that at different stages. And for you to go through that at a stage when you're, farther along in your life is, I'm sure it came as a shock.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I think people, there are transitions in life. So you graduate from high school, and then the tradition is you go to college. So you're going off to college, and you're going off by yourself. So that's the first experience with being without the family members that you were used to having around, even though you might have roommates and such, but still you're on your own.
Mm,
And then, like you said, you graduate from college and you're off at some point with a job, and maybe moving to another city. So there are different opportunities in people's lifetime to transition and to have those moments of being by themselves. And I guess again, anybody sort of handles it in different ways, even at those ages, right? You might not be necessarily a social person, and you're okay with that, and you're by yourself, and or not. Maybe you are feeling lonely at that age. But for me, I was 49 years old when that first experience, that transition happened for me. So, so I was a well-seasoned woman who was used to always having somebody around. So it hit me pretty hard. It was a decision that I made, and it was the right decision. But I still had to, it took like 2 or 3 years to sort of work on this concept of loneliness versus being alone. And to be alone is okay. I mean, that's what I learned now. It took me, like I said, a while to figure that out. But loneliness can definitely cause a lot of different things to happen to a person, from physical health, like problems with physical health, possibly depression, anxiety, maybe addictions start to set in because of the loneliness. And so, I've always been a person who's always like seeking and, wanting to grow. So, I went to a therapist, which I've been to, many, many times in my life, and I'm a true believer in it. And, to just really starting to find people that I felt aligned with in terms of people that I wanted to have friendships with, girlfriends, and then looking for different activities to do for things that I enjoy doing, right? So I remember right after I separated, I took singing lessons. And so that was like way out of my comfort zone. I mean, when I was little, I sang, but and I'd always wanted to get back to it. So that was a new thing. And again, a little bit social, right? Because I had to go to a music school and I had a singing teacher. And so that was me taking that step. I went to a dance studio, and again, that was out of my comfort zone. And so I really tried to do things that were different from what I guess what I wasn't doing, during my marriage, and to just seek out people and connections, because in the end, we are all one humanity, and as human beings, we do look for social connections.
Mm-hmm. What really resonates with me and what you just talked about, which I know we've mentioned in the chats before, is this importance of, allowing yourself to feel your feelings and your emotions, and to sit with them and to process them, so you can recognize them, understand them, and treat them more like a friend, actually, as opposed to like an enemy. Because when you dismiss them, or don't explore what that means, they come back, and then they're not familiar, and then you're shocked again, and it's this process over and over. And what you talked about in terms of going to therapy and sitting with your idea of loneliness versus alone, I think is doing just that. Is a tool that someone can take as, let me try this. Don't push away that loneliness feeling, or even being alone, having connected to loneliness, because society tells us that you need to be partnered, you need to follow this track, and I think that we are then conditioned to think that we have to do that. And so if we start to feel this idea of loneliness, that's a weakness, that's not a thing that's attached to me, so I don't want to go down that path. But you're right, if it goes unacknowledged and unchecked, it can lead to some really scary situations that you're not really aware of, how it happened so quickly. And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, and just sorry, I think from there, you also talked about the importance of, you know, being comfortable with yourself, spending time with yourself, finding activities to do, and I think that that sort of like followed in a nice pattern.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. That's very insightful. Yeah, exactly right. The whole idea of emotions, and I think that a lot of us, for me, definitely, I've thought that I shouldn't I shouldn't pay attention to those negative emotions. I need to just
Mm,
stuff them down and, oh my gosh, I feel angry. Oh my, I shouldn't feel angry. And
mm,
oh, I'm sad. I need to stuff that down. Let me just keep going and, try to forget that that's happening. And then I guess I learned that that doesn't work because they come up, if you stuff them down, they suddenly like explode out in a really bad way if you don't acknowledge those types of emotions. So yeah, so that's been very important to me. That's the other thing I did um, after the separation is that I reached out to my meditation coach from 28 years ago, who I have checked in with throughout the years when there have been difficult moments. And so I had weekly sessions with him also for about 6 months, and to just sort of ground myself, back into this new time in my life. And it was very helpful because I meditation has been important to me, and it's been life changing, and I was going through a life changing moment. So it was really good to sort of feel that support from
mm,
the meditation standpoint.
mm.
Um, and then the other interesting thing, Philip, is that Dr. Vivek Murthy, and I don't know if you've heard of him, but he was the Surgeon General under President Obama,
Okay.
and he's going to be the Surgeon General under President Biden. So that's exciting.
Love
And
that.
he wrote a book called Together, and why social connection holds the key to better health and
Can
higher
we see it?
performance. No, we cannot because we cannot find it.
Oh.
Yeah. So, from the time I read that, which was like April, maybe April, May, it was right around the beginning of COVID. And I moved 2 months ago, so I can't locate it. So I'm sad about that. Um, but
We
it
can
was,
put it in the description.
yes, I will. But it was really so eye-opening. And I don't think he wrote it because of COVID. I mean, this was already his intention to write this book on loneliness, which, he sees it as this global health issue. He calls it a silent epidemic that that has been going on just for just a very, very long time, and that it really just exploded. Now it has exploded during this time of COVID, and the lack of social connections and the social distancing that we have to have in place. But it was just a very insightful book. He's done a lot of research on this. He worked on a lot of almost like experiments, with different people. There are some great stories in the book about how they worked on, different people in different situations, and how they were able to get them to a place where they would perhaps go to a senior adult center where they would have other people that were their age, and there was a facilitator who helped them with activities, and there was a chance to have a meal and share it with others. So that's an example, of what was happening pre-COVID. And so, then you put the COVID restrictions in place, and it's become very challenging.
Yeah, what was the name of that book again? Could you say it?
Well, the very first, I mean, the major word to it is together.
Okay.
Together, and then there's sort of a subtitle, a long subtitle, but it's called Together by Dr. Vivek Murthy.
Okay. Just in case anyone wanted to write it down quickly.
Yeah.
I think that doing those readings and expanding your mind into the type of research that's in that book is a really great tool for people who are looking for something. I also think that just if you can, just to raise your hand to somebody to say, hey, I'm not feeling great, like, can we just talk, not about anything in particular, just start with the weather and go from there. And sometimes it's hard when you're feeling those feelings to even say that. So I would encourage people to be aware of friends and family in your network, that especially during now, meaning quarantine isolation periods, where that they either do live alone or they're elderly, to make more of an effort to call them, check on them, send a message, send an email, whatever that is. And I've certainly been doing that, and people have been doing that for me, which is, it feels really comforting. And even though we are being socially distant, you can still find moments of connection like that.
Yeah, that's very important. It's very true. I mean, to just really get that message out of reach out to others, and I think that it'll be a huge message that everybody can do that. And for me also, that whole idea of reaching out to others was very difficult for me, and especially in the sense of needing actual help. I've always thought, I need to do this by myself. I'm showing weakness if I'm asking people for help. And so it's something that I was working on pre-COVID. In January of 2020, I got the flu, and I got tested, and it was type B, and I don't know if it had COVID as part of it, but it was the flu. And so I was just, I could not function. I mean, I was really sick. And so then that's where I finally realized, Brigitta, it's okay if you ask for help. I needed somebody to help me get a prescription, and if they could possibly bring some meals. And I mean, just even right now, me repeating this is really hard. It's really hard for me to say, I needed someone to help me. It's just so hard, but it's something that I've continued to work on, that it's okay, because if anybody asks me for help, I would be so honored to help them. I would feel like, oh my gosh, they want me to help them. Of course I want to help them. So it's interesting how hard it is for me to think the other way around. Like, why would anybody want to help me?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's very hard to allow yourself to feel vulnerable. And I think that, you have done that, and you did that in this chat. And I really thank you for sharing everything that you have shared, and you've been vulnerable in the process. So, it's a constant practice. Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Well, I think that as we move forward, I think that it's important, again, like you said, for people to know that it's okay for them to reach out, and it's important for all of us also to talk to our networks, and check in with them, and for people to know that there are some ways to move away from the loneliness, be it through professional means, a therapist, a coach, be it through walks in nature, meditation, movement, running, exercise. Right now, I think those are important things to remember. To maybe everybody makes a list of some of their favorite things that they used to do and that they would like to try again, or things that they feel like, oh, I'd like to explore this. And right now there are a lot of options virtually that people can do until we're actually able to get together again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll share two of my favorite things really quickly
Yes.
before we wrap up. I just think breathing for 10 seconds with intention in and out, I have found to be very helpful in centering. If you're in between things or if you're just feeling like very scattered mentally, I've come back to that a lot. That's been helpful. And another thing is someone gave me this tip once of, when you're in the shower and you're washing, just imagine that you're rinsing away that stress or rinsing away those negative thoughts or whatever may have happened to you, and just choose to use that time as a reset. And that's also been helpful. And, those are things you can do quickly that you don't have to commit to running outside or, a long sort of thing. You can just find that time. Those are activities that you're doing anyway, breathing and showering. So just bring some of that intention in. That could be helpful.
I love it. Those are great suggestions, Phillip. Well, thank you all for listening, and I honor the light in each of you and you, Phillip. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Uno Souls Chat. You can find us at www.unosouls.com and on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I would love to hear from you if you would like to chat with me. Have a beautiful week and see you at the next episode.